So I imagine the situation is something like this. You're a post beginner, you know how to play chess, and you just want to get better. But you find yourself stuck at a particular level, maybe it's around the 1,000 mark or 900 mark, something like that, and you can't really improve. You go up and down a little bit. You improve one week, and you drop down a little bit the next. Or maybe you're fed up with the sort of conflicting information you're reading about like improving. So in this guide, what I'm going to do is talk through you my opinion on how to get better at chess as a sort of post beginner. And it's a no-nonsense guide. Well, what I mean by that is I'm going to boil it down to the essential things you need to know. And you'll be able to, at the end of the video, watch the whole video and then take the knowledge into your chess games. And it's not going to involve theoretical knowledge, it's not going to involve anything complex, and it won't cost you a penny. So that's always a bonus, yeah. So let's have a look anyway. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is Endgames, right? Don't run away. It's nothing scary, right? What you need to know in Endgames is not very much at all. In fact, you only need to know 3 things. Number 1, the overkill mates. Know how to mate with a rook and a king versus a king. Number 2, you need to know the rule of the square. And number 3, you need to know basic sort of knowledge on king and pawns. Let's have a closer look then. Right, so it's absolutely essential you know how to mate with a king and a rook versus a lone king, right? There's no point in really going any further if you don't know A, how to do that, and B, how to do it really quickly and effectively, right? And I've seen stronger players like stumble over this, like, getting into sort of pressured games where you haven't got much time and in a pressured situation and mess up knowing this. Like, so there's no shame in not being good at this. Practice this, get good at it. I'm not going to show you how to do it in this particular video, but I have got this silly little show that I produced which explains that. So if you want to click on the link, you can do. I'll just show you a little clip of it.
It's not good, this. I know. Oh, where's the move? Eh? Where's the move? Oh.
So, I'm sure I've got nothing else better to do in my time, but I'm sure you get the idea behind that.
You mean like that? Yes.
So the second thing you need to know is the rule of the square, which is quite a simple but quite a powerful concept, really. So if we look at the position on the board, then it deals with a white passed pawn and a lone king. So the question is, can this pawn promote, right? And what you need to do to work this out is count the square. So let's start with the end. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have a square, imaginary square here. Now, so the situation is the black king within the square? No. So if it's white to play in this position, white wins. If it's black to play in this position, then black will step into the square and it will be draw. So that's a concept, and it's got practical uses. So let's look at this example. So if you look at the rule of the square, then it's a simple calculation. All you need to do actually is be able to count to 5. Right, so it's not too bad. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So is it going to let me draw? I need to be on the other screen. Yeah, so it's a simple enough calculation. All you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you just draw the square in your mind's eye. And then, if you exchange rooks, the king is going to be outside of the square, right? So that's it. It's a white win in that position. You can play the position. You don't have to calculate anything. You count to 5 and then you know that you're going to win. So it's a very simple concept. So it's very useful to be able to have those 2 things under your belt. You can win just with the rook, and then you can calculate these sort of endgames just by counting, basically by the rule of the square. So there we have that one. The final thing you need to know in terms of endgames is just a basic idea of the king and pawn endings, really. So in this position with white to play, what you want to be looking at is these 3 squares. If you can control these 3 squares on the 7th rank with white, then you're going to win the endgame. So in this position, what you want to be doing is king e6, and then black has 2 options. Let's say it goes to d8, then you just go to this one, right? And take that square. You've taken the key square, one of the 3 key squares, and then you just push the pawn up there. If black went to the other square, then you take this one and push the pawn likewise. So in the original position, always think king first. You know, if you push the pawn, then it's going to end up in a draw, unfortunately. So if in doubt, always king first. Lead with the king and bring the pawn up in the rear. So let's just show you, for example, if you push with the pawn, that's just really bad because it loses. Well, it doesn't lose, but it draws. After this, and then there's no progression. You try and come round, and king just keeps the opposition. We don't really need to get into that concept, but basically, you can't take these two squares. Right, so it's going to be a draw. So yeah, so that's the final thing you need to know. Simple concept. Three key squares on the 7th rank. Get to king to that. Push the pawn. Good to go. All right, so let's look at the next thing we're going to talk about. Openings. Right, absolute nightmare, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So at the risk of sounding a little bit preachy, I'm just going to give you 2 don'ts and 1 do. Okay, so the first don't play like premature attacks or trappy unsound openings. Number 2, don't study opening theory. Right. Number 3, do go by general principles of development. So let me show you exactly what I mean. So number 1, don't play trappy unsound openings, and this is the sort of stuff I mean. And then bringing the queen out on move 2, like to h5, right? And you see this sort of thing a lot in beginner players, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to like win easily out the opening. You know, maybe they're looking for g6 and then pick up a rook in the corner like that, or maybe they're just hoping for the knight coming in and then picking up a pawn. This is just like bad chess, really, because what White's doing is by this move, he's hoping Black makes a bad move. Right? It's like, I'm going to play a bad move and I hope you play a bad move. But if Black just plays the correct move, knight c6, White's just worse on move 2. Right? So there's just no value in playing things like that. You know, even against low-rated players, because as you move up the ratings, players aren't going to make these mistakes, right? And you're just going to have a worse position on move 2, which is a bit daft, really. So don't get sucked into playing these sorts of trappy opening moves. Number 2, don't get sucked into studying opening theory, right? It's just far too much than it's worth. Like even at intermediate level, the study of theory is just not. It's just not worth it. You know, imagine that. You know, you just had a massive storm and the roof's just partially blown off your house, right? Studying opening theory is like choosing ornaments for the fireplace. Like it's just ridiculous. It's just not needed at all, right? There are some people that actually says don't study openings, don't study opening theory until you're like 2,200. You know, that's at one extreme end. Like, you know, I've heard things like 1,400, 1,500, 1,600, but certainly like around about 1,000 rating. Then opening theory is just no, just don't do it. It's just not worth your time. Yeah, no way at all. So don't run away from it. So then, Mr. Negative. Okay, the third thing, do follow opening principles, right? What I would strongly recommend is what you want to be doing out the opening is just getting a good playable middle game position, right? If you just follow general principles of developing pieces and then castling safely, after 12, 40 moves, 95% you're going to be in a better position because your opponents are probably going to be trying the sort of trappy, crappy stuff, right? So you don't need to do that. Develop your pieces and you're going to be in a better position. You know, the object of the opening is not to try to win in the opening, it's just to get a middle game. For example, if you just focus on, you know, developing pieces, you know, developing your pieces, right? I'm not prescribing any particular opening, you know, E4, D4 at this stage, but just focus on development, develop. Black might end up playing silly moves like silly pawn moves that are not developing. And then you just take advantage of that by, well, you can either open up straight away or just continue developing your pieces, right? And, you know, you're going to be in a better position without even really trying. You know, focus on just something like that, getting your pieces into play. Like nothing special, nothing, you know, maybe nothing exciting, okay, he's not going to win very quickly, but the object is you're getting into the game and you're just developing your pieces, really. And that's what I definitely just recommend doing. Right, definitely worth it. Because if Black starts making all the rubbish moves, then you're going to just take advantage of that in the middle game. You could think of it in terms of a little bit like an arms race. You know, you're trying to get your pieces into play, ready for the battlefield. You're developing the pieces and you're keeping your king safe. And you're not moving the same piece necessarily more than once. And of course, there's always going to be exceptions to general principles. They don't work out all the time. And the particular openings, for example, the Scandinavian, where the queen legitimately comes out early on in the game, in order to neutralise the central pawns. But things like this, they're going to be exceptions to the rules, right? And if you're just developing pieces, I think 95% of the time you're going to be in a good position at the opening, which is what we want. All right, let's move on to the next one. So that brings us on to the middle game. And in the middle game, I would recommend 3 things. The first thing, the absolutely essential thing, is to try to reduce your blunders. Right, okay, keep your pieces safe. Number 2, look out for tactical wins. Simple tactical gains, simple checks, simple captures that your opponent's overlooked. And number 3, don't rush, don't try and force anything. Okay, so I've got some good news for you, and I've got some bad news for you. So I'll give you the bad news first, right? The bad news is I've been trying to select middle game examples from players rated around about 1,000 to 1,100, that sort of thing, 900, showing those principles that I've just talked about in terms of the middle game. The bad news is I can't find very many good ones, right? But the good news is, and it's good news for you, the reason is that the openings are just really so bad, to be honest. But that's good news for you because you can take advantage of this. So let me show you the terms of the openings and the middle game principles together. So let's just have a look at this position. I'll show you what I mean. Right, so let's have a look. So d4, fine, fine. This is a little bit dubious gambit, but we'll just forget about that for a moment. It's not unplayable. Right, so everything okay so far, no problem. And then what is this move, right? You're not to pick on the players at all. It's a development journey. But this move just doesn't develop a piece. It moves a random pawn for no reason. And it doesn't really do anything about this pawn. But that's just... the black player can just pick this pawn up for free, which he does. And then developing a piece, okay, that's better. Maybe not much advantage on this square, really, but at least it's development of a piece. And then this doesn't make any sense, right? You've got this knight in probably the best square it's ever going to be in, right? And then you've got this has not moved, this has not moved, this has not moved, this has not moved, this has not moved. So, what's the point in retreating the knight, right? So that just doesn't make no logical sense whatsoever. What the black player should do is just develop another piece. I'd probably play bishop e7 here and then get ready to castle. Okay, so it makes no sense whatsoever. But anyway, let's carry on. And then again, it's just totally bizarre. I mean, I don't have no idea what the white player is doing. Right, and this is what I'm talking about by just developing normal pieces. Right, it's another random retreat. I'm no idea. Is the knight's a bit tired retreating? I'm not sure. So anyway, let's carry on with the game anyway. So, okay, random pawn move for no reason. Bishop e7, fine. We'll just move the same bishop, and we'll just not bother with these then. See what I mean? You can just win games easily at this level if you just develop your pieces. Right, fine. Right, the queen out. Well, I'd rather get these moving. Right, and then castle, to be honest, before moving the queen. I know it puts pressure on this square, but I think that's the priority. Let's carry on. Yeah, good. So, it's another random pawn move. Maybe white wants to get the rook out, but yeah, no, really, it's not really a good idea because, again, there's nothing in the position that this rook's not going to really do anything. But anyway, and then we get the rook out, and then this looks like it wins a piece, but white could actually go on pass on here. And I know that he doesn't because I've seen the position. He takes, and then I've had enough of sort of this game. So we'll look at something else. Let's have a look at another example. Okay, so let's look at this one. There's a few fairly decent opening moves here. So yeah, we get into this position, and this is okay. This is fine. Both sides are developing a piece, and game can carry on. Challenging the bishop, okay, fair enough. It wouldn't be necessarily my first move, but it's not horrific at all. And then taking the knight, probably not best. Probably dropping the knight bishop back is probably better, but that's not necessarily wrong. This is a little bit dubious for me. You're taking with the pawn here because you're never going to be castling then, kingside. It's perfectly possible to castle queenside or keep the king in the centre in this position. Use the open file, half open file, but it's not maybe ideal. But there's nothing terrible so far, really. Not really keen on this idea. I mean, trying to cut out this square, but black can just take anyway, so I'm not really sure that really does anything. It also takes Oops. Also takes the square away from the knight, right? So the knight can't drop in. So you've got to think about, where your pieces are going to go. If you're going to put random pawns in positions, then, maybe it's trying for a pawn push. Maybe that's not horrifically bad. But let's carry on. And this move makes no sense whatsoever, right? It's not going to lose white the game, right? There's no dropping a piece or anything like that. But, I mean, what's the pawn supposed to stop? Like, what piece is coming to this square? Like, none. Like, ever, with the looks of it. So this move just doesn't do anything. And it reminds me a little bit when I was sort of probably playing around this level, and I got my first chess coach, and he looked at my games and probably something a little bit similar to this, and he says, "Oh, you need to be a lot more aggressive." So I said, "Oh, I need to be more aggressive." He says, "No, you need to be a lot more aggressive," right? And things like this is how we're probably playing as well, and this just makes no sense. It's not aggressive. It's not doing anything. It's a waste of a move. But let's not be too harsh. I'm not meaning to be harsh. I'm just trying to talk through what I'm seeing. I'm trying to help people who are playing these sort of things. So let's have a look. Let's carry on anyway. There's only one piece developed, so I wouldn't necessarily be opening up the position. It's just not really relevant. Takes. But that's looking alright for white at this stage. Takes. And then black just forgets that the queen is like hanging in that position, and it's just game over. But white's not really doing this move, just loses. I think it's just a counting error, right? So all black needed to do before playing this move is make sure, like, if bishop takes, queen takes, I can't play this move. I just have to bring the bishop here, and the game carries on. Okay, so I'll look at one more position, and I'll move on to something else. Okay, so I found a nice example of not playing on autopilot here. So let's have a look at this one. So, absolutely fine, no problem. Philidor, nice solid position for black. And then you get into a position like this, right? So obviously, lots of beginner players like to just target f7 immediately. And, black's got to do something about this, right? So black, I think, has just probably got the mantra of develop pieces, right? And then just develops a knight. So this is obviously no good in this position. You can't develop a piece. Ideally, you want to be doing that, right? You want to be developing pieces. But in this position, you have to do something about f7, right? What you need to do is probably push d5, right? And then something like this, right? But black's on sort of development, well done for developing, but in this position you can't do that. And that's basically game over, although I think black wins in the game, but I'm not going to go into it. So in this position you're hanging the queen but misses it. So it's bad, but do something about, don't just plonk out the development moves when necessary. You have to still think and adjust to the position. All right, so let's get away from middle games and opening principles and move on to the next thing. Okay, so the next thing you absolutely need to do is to analyse your own games, right? So if you don't analyse your games, then you're not going to identify your mistakes and you're not going to necessarily improve, right? So what this will involve is going over your game like we've just been doing, looking at the positions and picking out, what you think's a mistake, what you think's a blunder, and then comparing that with a stronger player. If you can get a stronger player to look over the game, that's the actual ideal. If not, then an engine, and you're just picking out the blunders, right? So forget about the inaccuracies and the mistakes, just the major mistakes. Look at those mistakes, and then try not to do that again. Really, or it's easier said than done. But what you could do is import those mistakes into Chessable, for example, and train those positions. Okay, so that's analysing your own games. Next thing I would do is play regularly, right? It's difficult to improve if you're only playing one game a week or one game every 2 weeks. Try and play regular games. Try and play longer games if possible. Potentially joining the chess club is also the way to go, so you can pick up lots of information from players around at the chess club. So that will be my fifth thing. Okay, so I want to mention two more things. The next thing is tactical study. So getting good at tactics is like the key thing really at chess, and what I would definitely recommend is simple tactical puzzles, right? You want to be getting good at the really, really simple basics. Like we saw from those positions that those players are not losing because they've missed a complicated mate in 7, for example. They're just dropping pieces. They're missing sort of tactics, basic tactics, things like that. So get yourself some material if you want to. If you want to just play and spot your own errors, You know, you can do that and don't have to spend a penny. I have got a basics chess patterns course that's free. You can have a look at that. I'll link above. And then a main course that is a paid course, the Common Chess Patterns. But you know, I'm not sort of trying to push that really at all. That's something that you'll definitely need. You know, more study, the more you get better as a player. But you know, that sort of post beginner rating, you know, I think mainly just playing, picking out errors is enough. But if you want to take that next step, then tactical study is definitely where you need to be. So the last one then would be book recommendations. So you don't necessarily have to read books to get better at chess, just playing, identifying errors. But if I would pick out books, I've picked out 3 books for you. So let's have a look at what I would recommend. So the first book I recommended was Logical Chess Move by Move by Chernev. Now this is a fantastic book. And what it will do is talk you through, you know, the logic behind chess moves, which is useful as a beginner player because the idea is that you've not got those patterns and ideas already in your head, and having some sort of thought process is very useful. It's an old book, but it's still a classic. It's still very, very good. The second book, let's have a look what I recommended. Chess Essentials by Capablanca. Another great book, very small, but it's packed full of so much information in there. And the other book was Master versus Amateur, a little bit dated, but still, it's got lots of good stuff in there that's useful for you. So, thanks for watching this really long video. It's a little bit longer than I intended, but I hope you've got something from it. If you've got any questions, and you can, you know, message me in the comments section, or you can post some of your games or something like that. I don't mind having a look at your games if I've got time. Yeah, so thank you very much. Let me know what you thought of this video. Hopefully, as long as it was good. I don't want any negative ratings. And then thank you very much and take care. Good luck.